6 out of the top 7 teams are from the SEC. There's plenty more for us to talk about on this week of the Pigskin Cafe.
Welcome to the Pigskin Cafe, a podcast where Hampton, Chase, and Graham break down all things college football. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
They have to win this game.
There's a problem.
This one's tough.
We are back.
That's what my gut's telling me.
I genuinely could not believe
You
it.
don't live in the great state of Texas.
All right, big boy. Hold my sweet tea.
What are we doing?
That is a stat.
Let's move on. I think that I'm not frustrated. It feels like the same thing. I think that's why it's kind of irking us in the way that it is. It just feels like it's the same. You could go listen to the pod last year and it was exactly this. So, hey, let's move on to the Cal game, the University of California football game that was played in Jordan-Hare Stadium. We got the Bears, and I did hear today that they were playing the liberals from California on the plains. And anyways, they come into Jordan-Hare, which if you listen to Game Day, Saban was talking about just the environment. This was an improved Auburn team in Hampton. Man,
Start with Graham on this one.
Okay, I'll start with Graham.
Start with Graham on this one.
I decided I got this whisper in my ear to start with you.
Was
What
that
an
the Holy
interesting
Spirit?
What an interesting football game. What were just kind of your high level thoughts about Auburn going down, losing to California?
Yeah, I mean, you got to give credit to California. They did look fairly impressive, and there were even talks by the commentators during the game that this Cal team could compete in the ACC and possibly like win the ACC championship, which is probably a little bit of a stretch in my opinion. But we all know that it's that Jordan-Hare is a hard place to play, and Auburn always finds a way to It doesn't matter what season it is. It doesn't matter who the coach is, who the players are. They play one really close game at the beginning of the year against a team that they should obviously beat. And this is just an example of them just not having it together. This Auburn versus Cal game kind of reminds me of last year. They're playing New Mexico State, just kind of overlooking what they had right in front of them. I mean, Auburn just couldn't get anything going, looked very much like they had practice all week. And it was just kind of like, all right, hey, we're just going to keep looking, a few weeks down the road. Hey, Payton Thorne, we just trust you to go make plays out there, and didn't really do much film work. Man, I think that very disappointing effort by him. I know that all the Auburn fans out there have called for Payton Thorne's expulsion, his retirement from football. But, man, I think that, not that he is – I'm not going to sit here and say he's good, because I don't think that's the discussion we have to have.
Don't you lie on this podcast.
But I do think Auburn fans have very much a habit of finding blame for somebody, and then next week the blame it's not on them anymore. And so it's not that Hugh Freeze's fault that we're unprepared against New Mexico State and that we lose against Cal. It's like Payton Thorne's a terrible quarterback. We should just run the ball more. I mean, I think for this Auburn team, like I said, they just didn't have it together. Couldn't really get anything going. Never really felt like they had the momentum behind them. And, I mean, it always hurts whenever you keep throwing interception after interception after interception. Another concerning factor
after interception. You missed one.
Interception. You're right. Excuse me.
Yeah, Graham, they're going out for the final few seconds, 30 seconds left, and another interception.
Yeah. You got to give credit to Cal's offense, though. They were very efficient in the first half. I mean, the quarterback was like 22 for 23 or something like that first half. Something. I mean, very efficient, very good with the ball. And when you watch Cal's offense, it was very much of this is the play. Okay, it's not there. Check it down to the running back. Just get rid of it. Yeah. Whereas you looked at Payton Thorne, it was like, all right, this is the read. He's not open. All right, I'll try it anyway. And then we would throw it, and they would end up with that result. I think that if you're Auburn, you got to have a better effort running the football. I think that too much of yesterday's outcome was a factor of not prioritizing running the football. I think that there were so many times that Auburn's doing a great job of it when they did. I felt like the priority was we ran for 5 yards. Next 2 plays, we're going to throw it. And then that's the result you get. I think for Auburn, I think this is going to motivate the donors to start spending money to find a quarterback. I know in the offseason, Hugh Freeze was talking about how expensive they were in the portal, and I'm probably certain that they're going to restructure Hugh Freeze's contract. He's going to have like $1 million budget on quarterbacks in the portal, and if he doesn't use it, he doesn't get it to his paycheck. You know, I thought that's probably what's going to happen. Overall, not a good game for Auburn. I mean, really, just a poor effort. I think for Auburn fans and for a lot of college football fans around the country had high expectations for Auburn, thinking they were very much improved. But they're still just raw. I mean, they really are. Have some good receivers on the outside. Just still works in progress, especially when you have Payton Thorne playing QB.
All right, I feel like I could jump in, but I mean that was the story of the game. Like it really was. It was as simple as that. I mean he did play. I mean I'm over here sitting there. I'm like, I mean,
he's at a loss for words.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking. I was like, I mean, it really made you feel like Milroe didn't play that bad. Like, I mean, honestly, I'm over here like
you compare them side by side. It ain't even close.
Chase, count your blessings and name them one
right.
by one.
One by one. No, I was just gonna say,
I almost got as many blessings as he had interceptions.
Dude, there was just some abysmal interceptions. Like the one at the end of the game. It's just, brother, who we throwing that to? It feels like, Graham, like you said, when the play busted, it felt like you just kind of threw it into no man's land, hoping to kind of clock it. It was just like, what are we doing, man? You're throwing pop flies to your outfielders out there is what it felt like. But but here, I will give credit to this. I did feel like Cal actually has some pretty good DBs that made some really athletic plays. I'll give him that. There was a couple of plays that I felt like, hey, those dudes definitely played on the offensive side of the ball at some point in their life because there's a couple of guys who made some pretty stout plays. There was a couple of ticky-tack interference calls that I was pretty blown away with. And Graham, you were talking about Auburn having money. I thought that the check cleared when the fourth quarter started because there was
that one drive.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yeah, I think for Auburn fans, this one's pretty sobering is the word that I would say. It was just pretty sobering that I think they thought they were going to take a step second year Hugh Freeze, and I think that this might have showed you a lot of
They did. They just fell in a hole.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was going to show a ton.
Or took a step back.
Yeah. I think they just thought they were going to be further along year two. I thought they were going to be further along year two whenever they hired Hugh Freeze than they are right now. So, Hampton, I'll let you kind of go in on this. I don't know if I have much to say other than you felt a quarterback who did not put his team in a position to win the game. He said that Hugh Freeze said that their offensive line was also banged up, kind of in the same situation. And that was kind of his narrative. He felt like that Payton Thorne didn't have enough time to make a play. So I don't know. What do you kind of make of it? I'll let you really take this. That was all I really had on this game.
All right. So across the country, it definitely was like upset weekend. Like everybody kind of struggled. Arkansas almost beat Oklahoma State and fell short. Houston almost beat Oklahoma. Northern Illinois did beat Notre Dame, like we talked about earlier. Devastating loss for them. Boise State almost beat Oregon. I mean, there were a lot. Bowling Green almost beat Penn State. Like, I mean, as I'm talking, more coming to my head. It was struggle Saturday. But this is what I want to say to Auburn fans, and I'm going to just let everybody know right now, I try to be very objective on this podcast. I do. I try to be very objective. But there's going to be a little bit of bammer that comes out of me in this little tirade.
Let me just say, I just to flag this before you say this, I feel like Hampton follows on X. I feel like he follows about the 5 most toxic Auburn fans, and he reacts as if they like that's how every Auburn fan, they're all pouring in and are aligned with these people. So I'm just helping you out a little bit. I'm just saying, Hey, some of the people you might follow on X are very slanted at times.
Well, look, I have a friend that I will not name, and he is not on X, but I love him dearly, that told me Auburn could go 10-2 this year, and that they were going to start 5-0, and that Payton Thorne, he doesn't need to be much better than last year. But if he's just a little better, he's got better weapons. And I said at a restaurant enterprise where we got pizza, what in the world makes you think that he's going to be better? And how quickly do we forget how abysmal he was last year? At some point, this is like year 5 for him. At some point, you either got it or you don't. And he ain't got it. Now, bless Hugh Freeze's little heart saying that it was offensive line. I get that they didn't protect him very well and that he might have been pressured. That's still no excuse to throw 4 interceptions. Should have had 5 if not for a check that cleared, like you said, in the fourth quarter. Like, I mean, he threw for 160 yards. That's pathetic. That's terrible. And all I've heard about is Cam Coleman and Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Kendra Lambert-Smith. And I'm not saying that those guys are talented, but like you still have to have somebody that can get them the football. And then now it's, oh, well, we need to bench Thorne and put Hank Brown in. What has Hank Brown showed you? Because Hugh talked about in fall camp that it was like not even close between Payton Thorne and the other quarterbacks. So to me, you're in between a rock and a hard place, and you're just stuck with them this year. And their offensive line is not elite, and it's not going to be this year. I think it may be a little improved from last year, but they don't have like a certified dude on that offensive line. They've only got really one good running back in Jarquez, and even him, I wouldn't say he's not a superstar by any stretch of imagination. And with Payton Thorne at quarterback, Auburn has to run the ball. The only reason that he was pretty good at Michigan State is because they had Kenneth Walker to lean on. And so he didn't have to do much. But he's got to do a little bit more at Auburn, and it's more than he can bear, unfortunately, for them. And my favorite part about this is that I said this with Shep on the pod. They beat Alabama A&M, and all I hear is Auburn's a problem. We haven't looked like this in years. And I'm like, we have said this even with Brian Parson as the coach. After the first game and you blow out a nobody, man, we got 2 tight end formations now. Yeah, we're back. I mean, like, I get being all about your team, but, like, let's be a little realistic. It's Alabama A&M, Bubba. It ain't nobody big. So now you lose to Cal, who, Graham, like you said, they may contend the ACC. I do not think they're going to win the ACC from what I saw yesterday. But what's worse is Cal was playing like their third-string center. They were missing another starting guard, and they were missing their 2 starting receivers, and they go into Jordan Hare, whoop that thing. And then also, for all this talk about how great of a home field advantage Jordan Hare is, they're like 7-10 in their last 17 games, Jordan Hare. So Auburn, who I thought after week 1, I'm like, okay, of course, they're going to look good against Alabama and A&M. Their schedule's set up very favorably, especially the first 5 games being at home. Now Arkansas looks like they're going to be better than everybody thought. You got Oklahoma coming in there. What most fans thought was going to be 5-0 start now could be, 2-3? 3-2? I mean, like, yikes, because the back half of that schedule was tough. So the Freeze 4 turned into the 4 interceptions for Payton Thorne, and it's going to be a long year on the Plains if he doesn't drastically improve. And I don't have much confidence in that because, again, based on the past, this is kind of who he is at this point. And Auburn might be recruiting very well off the field, but you got to have the product on the field to validate to those recruits that, hey, I'm coming to join a program trending in the right direction. After that loss yesterday, again, I'm not trying to overreact or panic or like sound the alarm, but that doesn't look like a program that's made a huge leap in year 2.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was fun. I really enjoyed that.
I was about to say, you can see that the filter comes off now. There's some actual games that have been played.
Yes.
But I like what you said. I mean, I was kind of reflecting on what I was mentioning about Kalen DeBoer, kind of the way he was talking about Milroe, and you're talking about how Hugh Freeze, as he talked about Payton Thorne, said that it wasn't. And it's like, hey, those words meant something when you said them, or you're not or you're not someone that I can trust, because what I'm hearing is that that's the best guy that you have and that it's not even close. So there's some coach speaking that I think that's just where, especially to kind of your modern day player, hey, you got to be a man of, what your words have to have meaning, and you got to be able to go up there and maybe it was true at the time, but I don't know if he would. I wonder if he would walk that back a little bit. So, guys, let's move on just a few more games. We had, and we'll kind of hit these really quick. If you're a listener, these won't be long. So thanks for sticking here with us. I do think this is the fun part of the podcast, though, is talking about games that not only are fun to talk about, but are ones that are kind of meaningful to us. Those are the ones that are the most fun. And this is just more of, hey, we do watch other games. We love college football as a whole. We're keeping up with the landscape. So the first SEC matchup, we had Scooter playing Suave as South Carolina takes on Kentucky. And,
with Scooter coming out on top, big time.
You would have thought that, Suave, he was supposed to be in the college football playoff in our dynasty league, but Scooter goes in. They played in Lexington, right?
Yes.
And wipes them clean. I honestly didn't watch this game, but I saw the score, and I was kind of too late for me to cut it on just because they had already put it in the bag. Hampton, you kind of fill me in on this game and what you thought of it. Is South Carolina someone that we should be afraid of? And here's what I want to ask you. Here, answer that, and I've got one question I want to tee you up with. Are there someone that we should be afraid of? Alabama.
Afraid of what? What was the last part?
Alabama should be afraid of South Carolina. Was it that impressive?
Yeah, maybe, but I've got to see more. It's the TBD, and I say that because week 1 they looked terrible against Old Dominion. They were lucky to win that game, and then you play Kentucky, and you go into their house, and apparently Shane Beamer has a stranglehold over Mark Stoops. He beats him every year, and that was a thorough dismantling. Especially in the second half. It might have been worse if Sellers didn't get hurt in the first half and had to miss time. So I'm in TBD. Now, if you beat LSU this Saturday, now let's talk. But go. What's your second question?
Yeah, I'll just tee it up, Graham. It'll be the same to you. I was thinking about this, how deep the SEC is. And, of course, you've got some really, again, we start off the pod saying, hey, 6 out of the top 7 are SEC teams. That's a phenomenal top. Teams like Arkansas, though, I'm like, what's a win for them this season, record-wise? And just honestly, I'm just asking the question of, they feel like they could be a pretty good football team, but in this conference, they could get beat up. Like, what's just hey, if we hit this record, I think that's a win for South Carolina as it sits right now. Record-wise, what do you think, Hampton?
If they go 7-5, 8-4, I think that's a good year I think that's a really good year for them because Norris is a first-year starting quarterback, and they got some young weapons. They got some young talent. That Dylan Stewart kid, again, is going to be an absolute beast. So they got to hold on to him. They got to put all the NIL resources, push him into the middle of the table to keep that kid on campus because he's already kind of a problem now. But like next year, that dude is going to be probably a top 5 defensive player in college football. He's that gifted physically. So if they go 7-5, 8-4, I think that's another step in the right direction for them. Then next year you got Lenore's coming back, and you got some of that young talent that finally is kind of growing up. And then maybe they can make a little bit more noise. But before you kick it to Graham, I just want to say one note on Kentucky. I've watched many of Kentucky games over the past few years. That is as ugly as I've ever seen them look. Like, they could not block South Carolina. Brock Vandegrift looked in over his head. To only muster 6 points against South Carolina at home is an awful, awful look. So I'm very interested to see where they go from here. They play Georgia next week. Great consolation prize after getting your brains beat in by South Carolina. Now they're going to get beat in by Georgia. Not saying hot seat for Mark Stoops, but I don't know, man. Like, you can't keep doing this, especially after a disappointing year last year as well.
Yeah. Graham, if you don't mind, you mind if I move us to the next football game and get your reaction first? Is that okay? Do you got anything to add to this game?
It was just an embarrassing loss by Kentucky more than it was like a good win for South Carolina.
Agreed.
I think that's really just the storyline. Just a bad game by Kentucky and very embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Speaking of another embarrassing loss, Graham, I'll start with you. Nebraska, which I would say I was impressed by how many people had their pulse on this game correct. Nebraska, I mean, host Colorado, and Graham, I mean, they took them to town. It really did. It looked like two different teams when it came to Colorado, based on what you saw last week. So, Graham, just give me your quick thoughts when Nebraska they destroyed Colorado. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, you always got to watch out for a second-year Matt Rule's team. They always come to play.
Yeah.
I feel like when you look from last year to this year, like the offseason for Nebraska, it was just like we're moving in the right direction. We're doing things the right way. And you know the way Matt Rule coaches college football, you know they were going to develop talent, especially some of those guys that weren't highly recruited, weren't kitchen table names that have been talked about.
I like that, Graham. Kitchen table names. I like that.
Yeah. We talked about it on the pod last week. We thought that Nebraska, well, at least I thought Nebraska had the edge. Man, I mean, the trenches was heavily in favor of Nebraska. Defense, heavily in favor of Nebraska. I mean, you could argue that Colorado had the two best players on the field, but Nebraska's team was substantially better. I think that Dylan Raiola played a very good game. What is this? Dowdle is going to be a force. Dante Dowdle is going to be a force in the Big Ten. And I'll say this, and then we'll move on. Then we can move to whoever's next. I think college football is better when Nebraska's good because it's one of those places where they don't necessarily have talent in state, so they have to go to Texas, they have to go to California, they have to go across the Midwest to find these guys. But when Nebraska is good, I mean, they've sold out every game for the past like 20 years or something like that, and they have not been good for this last several years. So I think it's good for college football. I think that's good for college football when Nebraska is good. It's going to be more exciting watching Dylan Raiola and this Nebraska team face off against these other Big Ten opponents that are actually better than Colorado. I think that, just in my opinion, the hype is on a downhill slope for Colorado. It's on the elevator going down. It is going down very fast. They've shown that in these 2 years that yes, Shador is fantastic. Hunter is fantastic. Outside of those guys, they're a bottom bottom quarter college football team, and I don't think that's probably a hot take. Outside those two guys, they probably wouldn't win but 2 games this year, and honestly, they might not win more than that. Yeah. But a great game by Nebraska, and it's fun to watch Lincoln get excited for some good college football.
Yeah. Hey, and just to kind of, say like this too, I do think that at one point both those programs were in, not the Big 12, but whatever that was, the Southwest Conference or something like that, which was kind of a get together, a reunion of a matchup of a team they used to play each other a lot. Now they don't play each other as often, which I think is kind of cool. There was several matchups this year that had some old rivalries, which I think was awesome. And if you got anything to add to that, or can I get us moving to Tennessee?
Yeah, let me add something really quick. I know, Graham, I thought that was a great point made by you that they don't have a lot of talent in state, so they have to kind of expand their footprint. And I just want to say, can you imagine if California had some in-state Alabama players, they would have beat Auburn worse. But on top of that, for real, about Nebraska, Colorado, agree with everything you said. The trench play disparity was so apparent. Colorado is not going to ever be good if they don't fix that. And it looks like there's not been much progress has been made in that avenue for them. I mean, Shador was constantly getting hit. They were getting ran through like crap through a tin horn. I mean, they're kind of soft. I mean, like I know Shador is flashy. I know Travis is flashy, but they're just kind of soft. And then Shador goes after the game, throws his O-line under the bus, throws his running back under the bus. And I just think, honestly, they have a culture issue there. I really do, because you don't do that as a starting quarterback. It's always everyone else's fault but him. And quick note on Nebraska, huge win for them. That's like a landmark win. I know not against a very good football team, but a highly touted matchup at home. And that atmosphere was incredible. I mean, Lincoln, They have a very loyal fan base, and to give them a product that they can be proud of, I think they're going to be a force going forward. And last note, Raiola didn't have a huge game, but man, does he look composed to be a freshman. Like, the moment doesn't look too big for him. He made some really good throws. He was efficient, and he didn't put the ball in harm's way a ton. He kind of managed the game. They leaned on their running game, and they just kind of choked the life out of Colorado.
I like it. Hey, guys, let's hit these real quick. 1 or 2 sentences on Tennessee's win. What do you guys got? Hampton, I'll start with you.
Dominant. Nico didn't play great. He had 2 picks, but they still rolled because their defense is really good and because they have a really good running game. And NC State, I just don't think is a very good football team. They struggled the week prior, and then they got absolutely steamrolled. So big win for them. And now Tennessee, the hype train rolls on. They get Oklahoma, not this week, but next. That's going to be a really interesting matchup in Norman.
I like it. Graham, anything you'd add? Could I go get your take on Notre Dame going down?
Yeah, I just think NC State's been overrated. They've shown 2 weeks that they have not played very well. Doesn't mean they're lacking talent. They have not played well 2 weeks in a row. I don't think you can buy like the hype from them any longer.
Makes sense. Graham, give me your take on Notre Dame going to College Station in front of 100,000 people, beating them at Kyle Field, and then Notre Dame going home and losing to Northern Illinois.
Yeah, I think the biggest just issue with Notre Dame, their loss was Riley Leonard has still not thrown a touchdown through 2 weeks. No passing touchdowns, which is not good for a supposed to be top 10 team and a premier talent in Riley Leonard in college football. I think that this game wasn't talked about enough. I think it was just kind of swept under the rug that Notre Dame was going to win big because they beat Texas A&M and they come home. But they were talking about how like this Northern Illinois team was very veteran led. They had a lot of seniors. They developed a lot the past few years. So I think that Notre Dame did not do their homework and not come ready to play, and obviously that showed. I think that Riley Leonard not being good enough at quarterback is the issue in South Bend, and could hold them out of the playoff.
Yeah. Can I say quick? Oh, go ahead, Chase.
Yeah, I said Hampton, tossing it to you.
Yeah, I was going to say quickly. Riley Leonard is very limited as a passer. I love watching him play. He's gritty. He's tough. But 0 touchdowns through 2 weeks is not going to get it done. And then on top of that, Jeremiah Love, Kyle sent me this and pour one out for my buddy for after that loss. But Jeremiah Love had a great touchdown run with 8 minutes and 34 seconds left in the third quarter. He only touched the ball one more time after that. That can't happen. He's their best player on offense. You have to feature him, and you got to lean on him because through the air, they just don't have a lot right now. Hopefully that develops. But if it doesn't, there's a very hard and very fast ceiling on this team because they just don't have the passing game to make teams pay.
I like it. All right, let's end this last game. And Graham, I'm going to tee you up with this, and Hampton, I'll get you ready. Or how about this? I'll start with Hampton because I've started with Graham with a few. This Oklahoma State-Arkansas game. Hampton, what I want you to do, since this game was probably one of the closest games, if not one of the games of the week,
awesome.
make a case for why this was a good step forward for Arkansas. And Graham, what I'm going to come to for you is I want you then to make a case for why this was a good win for Oklahoma State. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Like make a case for each team. So Hampton, we know that Arkansas had a disappointing season last year. Coming this season, losing a tough game, a close game, an overtime game to Oklahoma State, who should be one of the upper teams in the Big 12. Make a case as to why, if I'm an Arkansas fan, I should be excited about the future.
Well, I think you kind of just made it. Like, Oklahoma State is supposed to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Big 12. Arkansas, most people didn't give them a shot in that game. I know we picked Oklahoma State to win, and they come in there and they're up 21-0. They look explosive on offense. I mean, Traylon Green and Jaquindon Jackson are very much a dynamic duo. Bobby Petrino had that offense humming. I mean, they outgained them 650 to like 350 in yards of total offense, but they kind of choked the game away at the end. I mean, just too many self-inflicted turnovers, penalties, just kind of like a grade A course on how to lose a football game. And that's what's disappointing if you're an Arkansas fan, because the game was within reach. If you win that game, that's like that you can ride that momentum for the rest of the year. And Sam Pittman can kind of point to this as like, this is a signature win, but instead you go home empty-handed. But overall, like, your offense at least is going to be dynamic enough to keep you in most of the games you play this year. You just got to cut out the turnovers, and you got to cut out the plays that are self-destructive and that come at the worst time. So overall, I was impressed. I was more impressed with them watching the game than I was Oklahoma State. Like, Oklahoma State capitalized on Arkansas's blunders, but Arkansas showed me that they got some talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And before you kick it to Graham, I did want to say, quick note, I don't want to dive into it. Texas absolutely destroyed Michigan. We
I'm
both
sorry.
had Texas.
I skipped over that game. I'm so
Hey,
sorry.
you were good. There's not much to say other than they destroyed them. It wasn't close. Graham and I both picked Texas. I had some questions about Texas coming into the year, and I still have some of them. Michigan just looked completely outmatched and outclassed. I think they're going to have a very long year. Offensively, they're anemic. And defensively, while they've got a few star players, they just lost too much. They lost too much off that championship team, 18 out of 22 starters, and it doesn't look like they just replenished them with guys who are up to the caliber that those guys were. So that's what I want to say on that game. And then, Graham, I'll kick it to you to talk about what you made of the Oklahoma State win.
Yeah, I think for Oklahoma State, you've just it's got to be the word mercy. I mean, just thanking the Lord that you don't get what you deserve. I mean, outgained by nearly 300 yards. I don't know how Oklahoma State was able to pull this one off. Arkansas got off to a very hefty lead
Blistering.
early. Yeah, I think that complements Arkansas being more explosive than people anticipated. But good for Oklahoma State for not being rattled, responding when called upon, and then just Oklahoma State has. I mean, they've got three guys that they can always trust to just handle it. And Alan Bowman been around college football longer than I've been alive. What is he, a 6-year guy? Ollie Gordon, 7 years. Goodness gracious. Ollie Gordon, just a consistent piece running back. You can trust him. And then we've seen the emergence of Brandon Presley for Oklahoma State. He got had 19 targets, 19 receptions. It's kind of shown that Oklahoma State, they know what their identity is. Get it to Ollie Gordon, get it out to Presley, and that's going to be the story going forward. I think that you're going to have to show that you're going to have to stop both of them in order for Oklahoma State to be stopped.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Hampton, you want the last word?
Yeah, not about this game, just overarching thing to watch as we kind of go into week 3. Florida started DJ Lagway against Samford. He went 18 of 25 for 456 and 3 touchdowns. My biggest question going in the week, they're hosting A&M. Does Billy ride with DJ, or does he bench him and put Mertz back in? That, to me, is fascinating, because you're kind of in a rock and a hard place, because you got this young, promising kid, and then you got a guy last year who played really well for you. What do you do, Billy? You're on the hot seat. You need a win. I'm going to be very interested to see how that whole situation plays out.
I like it. I think I'll probably go with the recruit that's making more money than I am each year. So that's just my 2 cents. But guys, what a phenomenal podcast. I mean, this is when we start. I can't wait. I really can't wait. And this is why, if you're listening to this, you made it this far. There will be something that we've said today that next week will be completely inaccurate. Won't even be close to how things played out in week 3 of college football. And that's what we're looking forward to. So again, thank you for listening to this podcast, whether you're in the car, if you're in the shower getting ready for work, or maybe you're working out. We just appreciate you listening. We're just a few friends that enjoy talking college football and figured that it'd be easier to start a podcast than us calling each other individually. So if that's yourself, then you fit in great here. So guys, grateful for you. This was a great podcast, and Pigskin Cafe is going to be closed for now. But until next week, chew on that. We'll see y'all soon.